Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Tatro-Duarte. I am presenting on a virtual learning model for VR and literature. This qualitative grounded theory is really a narrow study that focuses on discovering an explanatory theory derived from the data, which facilitates an understanding of whether the enrichment of providing a VR experience can significantly enhance comprehension and appreciation of literary texts. My question was, how does virtual reality improve reading comprehension and appreciation of literature in higher education? Some of the data that I collected, participants were English majors enrolled in any upper graduate level or undergraduate literature course at a CSU. The announcement was made via email and there was an application process. I collected based on observation. There were semi-structured interviews and short response questions. Each participant dedicated between 60 to 90 minutes. And then I also collected some demographical information for future use. The way the procedure was, each participant came in and experienced one of these three VR experiences: the Book of Distance, the Keys, or the Price of Freedom. If they did the Book of Distance, they read the poem, The Damned Fence. If they did the Keys, they read the poem, The Refugee. And if they did Price of Freedom, they read the poem, MK Ultra. After their VR experience, they read the poem, and then they were given short reading response questions. And after the short reading response question, they were interviewed. So what came out of the data was a VR learning model. One thing to note is that it's not cyclical, it's not sequential, it's recursive, and really take note of the arrows between knowledge transference and each aspect. They can be continuously visited, and the core of this is knowledge transference. Knowledge transference was really identified as gained or old knowledge or information that was being transferred from one world into another for learning or enhancing or filling in those knowledge gaps. And it can come from either the physical world and be brought into the virtual world or vice versa. Another thing that's important is knowledge transference stands alone, so it doesn't need any other element for it to happen. Adaptability didn't need to occur and be fulfilled for knowledge transference to happen. There were two levels, high and low. A low was kind of participants who were able to use their gaming knowledge to better understand how to adapt to VR. A high was more manifested when participants talked about what they learned in VR and how it applied to them better understanding the poems that they were assigned. Adaptability was the first to emerge, and every participant talked about that. It was really about world shifting and adjusting to the virtual world. So any discussion on interactability, movement, physical space, the controllers, that was defined as adaptability. Next was transitionality, and this is what I called the first-person shift. It was the third and more significant category that emerged, and that's a transition from being a bystander or watcher or player to becoming really an active participant. So it was that move from watching to being a part of the experience. And then fusion was identified as shared lived VR experience and knowledge. So it was the fourth category to emerge, maybe a more significant one. It was defined as character bonding, what the participants' knowledge becomes fused with the game, the experience, the narrator, and it's this kind of shared knowledge. One participant discussed it as, it's like, although it's her story, it's also mine. So some examples is when participants move from that second or third person and instead they start describing their experience using the first person personal pronoun. I was packing a suitcase. I had to leave my family and separate from them. I had to give everything up. So this is the idea of fusion. Lastly was enhancement, and that was any empathy, sympathy, maybe even epiphany and deeper understanding between the virtual experience and the poem that they read. What is important to note is that enhancement, unlike adaptability, transference, and fusion, enhancement can take place outside of the goggle. So the core of this would be knowledge transference, and you want to think of that as kind of the gray matter of the brain. Enhancement can occur outside of the VR goggles or the experience. And what makes this tangible is knowledge transference. So some examples: VR shows you what it felt like to leave everything you leave behind. I can't help but associate the VR memories with the poem. VR experience substantially influenced my ability to understand and appreciate the poem by giving me the context needed to imagine myself in their position. Overall, what I want to point out is that while my VR learning model has several elements that are similar to Kolb's experiential learning, knowledge transference was the core of this model. Ultimately, it's through knowledge transference that we can see how this learned knowledge is applied in both reading and the literature classroom, and in this study, the poem that they were given. This study really aimed to investigate the use of VR to enhance reading comprehension and the appreciation of literature. It showed that VR really does provide a learning experience that enriches the poems that the participants were assigned to. It allowed them to become active players, evoking emotional responses, and it can be valuable as a way to create equity for students. And it's something that I think, education, especially higher ed and, humanities, want to consider virtual reality as an investment of a learning tool for higher education. Thank you.